of the story behind the making of the gift is more interesting than the episode itself. There are some easy comparisons we could make to at least one other installment too, but ultimately, this one feels a little too forced to take its earnest message seriously. North of a mountain village in Mexico, a metallic circular structure just crashed to the surface. A local policeman named Sanchez drags his partner's lifeless body back to the village on a donkey. He was killed by a stranger who emerged from the wreckage. Sanchez shot the figure, but it was able to get away from the scene. With the townspeople under a curfew, a man wanders into Manolo's bar looking for some wine. We see that his arm is bleeding, indicating he may very well be the stranger from the crash site. The mysterious humanoid befriends a trusting, poverty-stricken boy named Pedro and is treated for his injuries by the village doctor. The stranger has a small golden box, referred to as a gift, that he entrusts to Pedro. Manolo soon sells the mystery man out by accepting payment for information. More officers are now on their way to take him in. This was director Alan H. Miner's only episode, bringing to life an original script by Rod Serling. There are a few very nice shots, but nothing that stood out too much. The actors here range pretty wide, from passable considering the material to, not great. Greek actor Nico Menardos was the most consistent, holding the story together as best he could. Henry Corden also wasn't bad as Officer Sanchez, recounting the events that preceded our story. It was nice to see Vladimir Sokolov show up. He had a short scene as a blind guitarist featuring his trademark delivery that was reminiscent of his work in Dust. This was his last of the trio of shows he appeared in. Sokolov actually passed away a couple months before the gift hit the airwaves. Cliff Osmond as Manolo probably had the most distinct screen presence as the comedic relief. His character was a small part of some of the more overt religious overtones I've seen in a Twilight Zone episode.
At your baptism, they forgot to give you a proper name.
What would that be, Doctor?
That would be Judas, Manolo.
If God were to come to Earth, would they find him so strange that they would be afraid, and would they shoot him?
Did not his son come once, Pedro?
And they nailed him to a cross.
And then spent 2,000 years learning to believe in him.
The townspeople later mentioned Satan and the work of the devil as well. Serling wasn't shy about mentioning God in his scripts, and there were certainly other religious themes and characters throughout the series. I mean, how many times does the devil himself actually show up? Along with a few other choice episodes, this seemed to go pretty hardcore in the Christian direction. We know Rod grew up in a Jewish family, but supposedly later joined the Unitarian Church, which is a branch of Christianity. The strange visitor has an almost Christ-like role, being a possible savior with the contents of his gift. You can't escape the symbolism. It's not even really symbolism, it's in the dialogue. Which is not performed well by Jeffrey Horn as the visitor or Edmund Vargas as Pedro. Horn's delivery came off much too pretentious for me to buy into, and Vargas was just not a very good kid actor.
I know nothing else except that he is my friend.
They try to give him this quiet, precocious worldview. Admittedly, it'd be difficult for most kids to make that kind of dialogue work. Producer Buck Houghton directly stated years later that Vargas couldn't act at all. Harsh. The story behind how Serling actually wrote this script has a few twists and turns, so allow me to cite our friend, Mr. Mark Zickrey, from his Twilight Zone companion book. Quote, "At some point prior to the filming of the Twilight Zone pilot, Rod Serling wrote an additional hour-length pilot script that was never produced. Entitled I Shot an Arrow into the Air, but bearing no relation to the first season episode of the same name, the plot concerned an intelligent and sensitive little boy who was shunned by his peers because his father died in the explosion of a homemade rocket ship. His mother defends his father by explaining he was simply a man whose dreams were just a little bigger than his knowledge. The boy's solitude proves an asset, however, when he stumbles upon a wounded alien in the woods and befriends him. With his aid, the alien is able to return to his home planet. The boy grows up to be an astronaut and, years later, meets his friend once again in space. 3 years later, Serling cannibalized this script, changed the location to Mexico, and shortened it into The Gift." End quote. Considering we got hour-long episodes in Season 4, it's too bad we never saw that script fully realized. Molding it into The Gift definitely left much to be desired. With the setup of a spacecraft landing off-screen and a mystery about who or what came out of it, leaving death in its wake, this also had me thinking of Will a Real Martian Please Stand Up? It doesn't go in that same direction, but the first 10 minutes still gave me that vibe. With the police after him, the visitor goes on the run and is eventually cornered by the entire town, who burn the gift he gave Pedro and shoot him dead in fear of the man from another world being an agent of evil. The doctor picks up what's left of the gift and reads it aloud.
Greetings to the people of Earth. We come as friends and in peace. We bring you this gift. The following chemical formula is a vaccine. It's a vaccine against all forms of cancer. That's all there is. The rest has been burned. So we have not just killed a man. We've killed a dream.
So there you have it. The gift is heavy-handed and not one of Serling's better scripts with a strong moral. It may have been salvaged with some different actors and a few roles and a slight tweak in the story here or there, but its ultimate manifestation showcases the fine line between brilliance and excessive self-importance. If I received this gift, I'd probably return it to somewhere in the Twilight Zone.